Welcome to the post-lunch session of Skillconclave India 2015. Skill development and the role of educational institutions go hand in hand. Without the support of educational institutions, skill development initiatives would face many hurdles. Our next session is on the role of educational institutions in skill development. May I welcome Dr. Milind Pandey, Project Director, MITSOT, as a panelist on the stage, as also the chairperson of this panel discussion. Dr. Milind Pandey is a project director of Pune's MIT School of Telecom Management. He is a staunch researcher and educationist with more than 25 years of academic experience as professor and director of MBA departments. His expertise lies in research areas that include technologies transfers in mobile domain, such as M-Education, M-Agriculture, and M-Health. Our next panelist, Mr. Sachin Satputy, Director of MIT Skills. I welcome him on the stage. Mr. Sachin Satputy is one of the founder members of the organization. He started as a teacher at MIT Skills with some initial industry experience. Today, Mr. Sachin is trying to scale the institute to a unique level into niche areas of training on universal industry standards. Mr. Sachin has trained approximately 3,000 students and more than 1,000 employees of various companies at different levels. Under his leadership, multiple MOUs with various multinational organizations were signed and executed successfully. May I invite Dr. Sailesh Kasande, Director, Corporate Relations at Vishwakarma Institute on stage. Dr. Sailesh Kasande, he's also a member of our Skill Conclave core group along with Dr. Milind Pandey. Dr. Sailesh Kasande, Doctor Corporate Relations at Vishwakarma Institute and a professor and head research at Vishwakarma Institute of Management, Pune. He is currently the member of Board of Studies in Production Operations and Services Management. Dr. Kasande has presented several research papers at international and national conferences and has received Best Research Paper Award for 3 of his research papers. May I welcome Mr. Samir Joshi, our next panelist. He is a CEO and director of Kohinoor Technical Institute. Samir Joshi is the CEO of India's leading technical vocational training institute, focused on developing skilled manpower for Indian and global industry needs. Prior to this role, Samir was with Otis Elevator Company, a part of the US conglomerate United Technologies, where he rose to become Asia's director as part of their global team. May I welcome Dr. Kalyan Sarup, Dean, Training, National Institute of Bank Management, as our next panelist. Dr. Kalyan Sarup, after 28 years of extensive lecturing, research, and consultancy, has moved over to academic administration as dean since the last 12 years. He was coordinator and the first dean of NIBM's postgraduate program. At present, he is Dean of Executive Training Programs at NIBM, Pune, India. I'll hand over the dais to Dr. Milind Pandey as the chairperson of this session, the role of educational institutions in skill development. Thank you. I would like to request Dr. Anand Sir Deshmukh to hand over the mementos to all our panelists.
very good afternoon to all of you. It's a post-afternoon, post-lunch session. We'll try to make it as alive as possible. Let me set the tone of this discussion. We said role of the educational institution in skill development. Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji, he spoke about the 3 A's. He said speed, scale, and skill. Skill at the scale, and that too at the speed. Many derivations we heard, 3 D's, deliberate, decide, deliver. Yesterday somebody also said execute, execute, and execute. After 69 years of independence, the first time the government has thought of setting up the Ministry for the Skill Development. The ministry is hardly 5 to 6 months old. But then many abbreviations came. Digital India, Make in India, Startup India. We started speaking about the digital India and education. How we can reach to the masses, how we can reach to the roots of the education. And there the digital India, the digital literacy came into the picture. Let me give you the educational report card. As per the India Skills Report 2015, there are 700 degree granting institutions, 38,500 affiliated colleges, 20 million student enrollment. 37% students, they registered for arts, 19% for science, 18% for commerce and management, and 16% for engineering and technology. Let me also tell you the teacher to student ratio, which is very important in educational domain. This ratio is 57, 1:57 for Bihar, 45 for UP, Madhya Pradesh 35, Maharashtra 30, and for Andhra Pradesh it is 22. The skill sector is concerned, the current capacity of the skill development programs is 3.1 million. Target of skilling by 2022 is 500 million, but only 2% country's workforce is skilled, as compared to China, which is 47%, Japan 80%, South Korea 96%. Friends, as a percentage of GDP expenditure on education, for India is just 3.3%, whereas the country like Denmark, where the literacy rate is 99% and percentage of GDP on education is 8.7%. We are speaking about the role of educational institution in skill development. There are 9,000 ITI institutions, 10 lakh students registered for it. 5,000 skill development centers, and believe me, 26 million people enter the working age group every year, with about 65% of them looking for jobs, and only 37.22% of surveyed people were found employable. There are 3 levels of education: primary education, secondary education, and degree education program that we called as a higher education program. What is the status for primary education? 1.5 crore students, enrolled students for the education, aged between 6 and 14 years do not go to the school. The dropout ratio is 54% of total enrolled students, and this dropout is happening mostly in between 5th standard to 9th standard. 2 lakhs schools, they run without a building. 1.5 lakhs schools, they have a single teacher. Many schools, they don't have drinking water, toilet, and so many things. But this is what the current scenario of the education sector. Let me give you one example. I was working with Dr. Abdul Kalam Saab on this concept called Pura, providing urban opportunities to rural area. We adopted 2 villages, and I went to one of the village. We came out with the device. Idea is that if Muhammad is not coming to mountain, let the mountain comes to Muhammad. If poorer is not coming to education, let education go to the poorer. So we developed one tablet. We developed softwares. The tablet, the 3 icons on it, school ka icon, Krushi Utpanna Bajar Samiti ka icon, and third was the hospital ka icon. If you click onto the school ka icon, you will get 1 to 10 digits. If I am a student of 7, click onto the 7, you will get the subjects. If I click onto the subject, the animated professor will come and will teach you. That is what the idea. So I adopted 2 villages in Maharashtra. The villages we identified where there is no electricity, no transportation, nothing. Very remote. One from Buldhana district and one from Marathwada. So I went to one of the school, interior, Melghat. There were 14 students, they were discussing amongst each other. I entered into the so-called classroom. They started staring me, "Kaun aaya hai?" I said, where are your Gurujis? Tumche Guruji kuthe hain? No answer. I raised the voice, "Where is Guruji?" No answer. I shouted, "Guruji kuthe hain?" They started looking outside. There were some window. And I also stared. So believe me, एक nahi एक आदमी की दाढ़ी बना रहा था. So I was surprised. Why they are staring to this? So immediately that nahi came to me. क्या हुआ? कौन है आप? So I said, I am a researcher. This is a tablet. I want to give it to the students. And this is an education-based tablet. The student can learn. Oh, okay. I am the only 7 pass in this village. It's okay. I am the only 7 pass. Okay, but who are you? So I am the teacher. I am teaching them. So how it is? आप तो अभी दाढ़ी बना रहे थे. So basically I am a barber. There are 2 teachers appointed here by the Maharashtra government, but there is no transportation mechanism. The bus comes from the district place to this village in the night or morning में यहाँ से जाते हैं. There is no accommodation available. Nobody is coming. They are giving me some 7,500 each. जब टाइम मिलता है तो मैं बच्चों को पढ़ाता हूँ. Otherwise, so this is what the education standard. The Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. In Marathi, it is like a shiksha only to the students. So what is that? How we can go to the schools? How we can educate them? No roads, no transportation, no electricity. So the big challenges. Everybody we spoke during this discussion, so that skill has to be incorporated at the 8th, 9th, 10th. Many international tie-ups we saw the models. The education is compulsory at 8, 9, 10th, 11th. How to achieve? And believe me, the digital education, digital awareness is very, very important for this. I will just set a tone. Dr. Abdul Kalam said the 3 types of connectivities are required. One is physical connectivity, one is electronic connectivity, and third is knowledge connectivity. Digitization and prosperity. When we say digital, the most important thing is the network, the broadband, the connection. We spoke about the national telecom policy, 68,000 villages connected with the broadband, 872 universities connected to the national knowledge network. But what is the current stage? What is the current status? Let me take you through the Indian employment outlook. This is of 2014. The third quarter says the increase in hiring is a 53%. Respondents say 2% decrease, but net employment outlook is 51%. The region-wise employment outlook, they said Western region, that is our region, the most required 55%, North region 53%, But surprisingly, the survey says the hiring prospects strengthened in all 4 regions when compared with second quarter of 2014, but enough talent is not available to meet the demand. What is that enough talent? If you see the sector-wise employment outlook, the wholesale and retail trade, the requirement is 56%, and education, the public administration and education, is at 53%. So need of the education is very, very predominant and very, very important. And what is the solution is the digital learning is need of the hour. But where the India stands for? So 150 nations, the agency did the survey on the following points. That says, let me start from the bottom. They said skill, incorporation of digital services into the lives of businesses. Second point, usability, that is ease of getting online and ease of use. Third is speed, that is real-time data throughput rates. Normally, nowadays we are facing call drops. Reliability, the quality and consistency of connection. Affordability, that is low pricing. And ubiquity, that is access to digital services and applications. And believe me, the India stands, there are 4 stages: constraint, emerging, transitional, and advanced. And India stands into the constraint category. Who are the highest scorer? Norway, Korea, Hong Kong, as far as digital literacy is concerned. The digital empowerment is concerned. One of the surveys says by 2018, each and every individual will be using minimum 6 gadgets with him. So how this digitization impacts in various sectors, as particularly the education. The digitization in education is to promote usage of ICT, and this I am directly linking with the skill development program. The enrichment of existing curriculum and pedagogy by employing ICT tools to ensure the availability of quality content online and through access devices, and to enable students to acquire skills needed for the digital world for higher studies and gainful employment. We did some pilot project. As I was mentioning, we came out with these solutions. We came out with the tablet, benefit for the villagers, said the MIT's tablet for farmer SEDAC. So there are various initiatives we have taken, and I will be concluding. The English literacy program. We heard of the story from China. They educated even the car driver, the cab driver, through the various communications, through the various channels. They improved their English speaking capacity. There are different programs for the English Sikho. English is the biggest problem, not only in urban, but in rural also. Tata Docomo came up with this. On your mobile, if you are a customer of Tata Docomo, you will get the 4 levels of English speaking free of cost. Basic course, social course, professional course, advanced course, 44 chapters spread across levels. And at the end of the 78 hours, they assured you that you will be speaking a comparably good English. Same is with the BSNL. They also came up with the languages, the translation of English language into the various languages, Marathi, Bengali, Gujarati, Punjabi, and they will teach you how to write, read, speak English. So this is one of the skill. Friends, we spoke about the digital literacy program and employment. This panel, we have a stalwarts and captains of the education sectors. Banking. The statistics says 14 lakh vacancies to job seekers by 2020. SBI recruiting 20,000 officers, 30,000 clerks. IBPS recruiting 70,000 officers, 31,000 clerks. And 80,000 employees from banking sector will get retired in next 2 years. This is the scenario. the telebanking, e-banking, mobile banking, e-commerce, m-commerce. The BFSI sector is expected to create additional employment of over 1.6 million up to 2020. There are 171 banks, 70,000 bank branches, 16,000 branches in rural, and 60% of Indians lack access to banking, that is unbanked. We have Dr. Kalyan Swarup, the Dean Executive Training Program, NIBM Pune. He is the first Dean. NIBM, the way back, started in 1969 and carries a legacy of 46 years, and established as an advisory board to RBI and acts as a think tank of the banking system and banking management. I request Dr. Kalyan Swarup sir to please share your views on these education institutions into the skill development, please.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey. Dr. Pandey has in a brief way and in a very nice and a simple way, given the audience some information about what the banking sector from the point of view of employment looks like. So today what I'll do in the next 15 minutes or so is, I'll give you a very simple presentation. And you see, NIBM, that is National Institute of Bank Management, which was formed in 1969. This was formed by Reserve Bank of India, the Government of India, and it was basically the initiative of the banking and financial system of this country in 69, and you can correlate what happened in 69 to the banking system, right? So that's when the nationalization was done. So obviously it was thought that, you see, if banking has to grow, and if banking has to very relevantly address the economic and the social and the developmental issues, because you'll agree that world over banking is for development. And obviously that is what was the basic agenda of nationalization, that the banks must become instrumental in development. So it was then thought that the quality of banking services must also be a major concern of the system. And so there must be some apex level institutions which will not only train the bankers, but the inputs for training must come from a thorough research and consulting type of activities. So that's how NIBM was set up in 1969. And that's when a rapid expansion started taking place in the banking system. So if you see the next slide, can you move to the, yeah. So what I have shown here, again in a very simple way, there are three phases of banking. But of course, this is not banking evolution. I think yeah. So there are broad three stages that I'm showing. The first stage is the 1970 to 1990. That's when the expansion, reach out. A lot of branches were opened, correct? And that's when a lot of recruitment took place. Obviously, to man these branches which are going to be functioning in remote areas of the country, a lot of recruitment took place, but the only very typical characteristic was that banking was all manually done during this period. But with this expansion, obviously, the business grew, the customer base grew, and obviously whatever was being done and the manner in which the banks were doing it soon became redundant. And it was not really meeting the expectations of the customers. Another characteristic of this phase was that the banks were operating in seller's market. Now let me clarify here, when I'm talking about the banks, I'm referring to the public sector banks, because you all know that even today, the public sector banks command more than 70% of the market share of banking in this country, right? So So the banks were operating in the seller's market during that phase of development. And that's what we used to say, that we were operating in the days of walk-in business, where the walk in into a bank branch and ask for a service. You can never imagine that happening today. So that was the phase. But then you see, after the phase of expansion, it was realized that it is very, very important now to consolidate. So everything now had to be set into a proper order, and the banks would like to now rethink about their business model. The bank would have to now rethink about how to move forward, because moving fast has associated risks. And obviously there is a time when any organization would like to then take a break from expanding and start consolidating. And that was the next 20 years phase. So consolidation from 1990 to 2010. This is when the process re-engineering also started taking place. Banks realized that the existing manual processes are no longer going to serve their business objectives. And that's when technology started coming into banking, right? Process re-engineering, technology adoption, and almost no recruitments. And that's where, in fact, the crisis of manpower that we see today triggered. So there were almost no recruitment. And this is the phase when competition also set in for the banks, right? Liberalization, private banks were given licenses. And this is also when the customers started getting alternatives, their expectations started going very high. So this was the phase of consolidation. And after consolidation, again, there was a third phase, a new phase which started. And this is a phase which got initiated because of the picture that I'm now showing you in the next slide. You see, what this shows is that today, in a typical bank, you'll find that there are almost 30% of the employees who are in the junior management level, and they are below the age of 35. Followed by age group between 36 and 45, very low percentage. Age group between 40 to 50, again low percentage. Age group between 51 and 55, and age group between 56 and 60, again they are in a very high percentage. So do you see the kind of problem that the bank has got into? It's a very simple thing. All those who are above the age of 50, or particularly those who are above the age of 54, and that's what Dr. Pandey also mentioned, they'll be retiring in the next 5 years. A good amount of employees from the banks are going to be retiring in the next 5 years. And in fact, in the next 10 years, again, if you see, the remaining employees, and that form about 50% of the officers of the banking system, who are going to retire. Now, as a result, what will happen is, those who are in the junior management and middle management levels in the banks are going to be pushed up very fast in the bank. So this is what is the present scenario of the manpower. Today, we have a large number of well-educated, tech-savvy, young employees who are the future of banks, in the public sector banks. Okay. Now, while they are highly educated, they are tech-savvy, they have the risk-taking abilities, but the other side is that they are not so experienced, and they also lack a lot of exposure. And the reality is that they are in large numbers. In the last 5 years, banks again started recruiting. That's the third phase, which I was describing. They started recruiting in large numbers, and now they have a large chunk of such officers who are not experienced, who lack exposure, and very soon they are going to assume important positions in the banks. And there obviously will be associated risks. Because if in the banking system, experience and exposure matters a lot, right? So it's that's a large number, and within a short time, they will be in critical positions in the bank. And obviously, there are associated risks with this kind of a scenario. And it is this that calls for the skill upgradation, competency upgradation, and training solutions to overcome these HR-related issues today. So, arising out of the present situation, therefore, in the next slide, what I'm trying to show is that there are basically 3 levels of training that is required in the banks. The first level of training is for these young people who do not have much experience, who have been in the system for 5 years, but who have already started taking important positions. They need to be given basic branch banking skills. They need to be given a basic credit management skills. They need to be given customer management skills because it's a service industry. And they need to be given a lot of soft skills. You know, we have a lot of technical people in the banks today, a lot of people with engineering background. There are doctors who have joined banks. There are people from pharmacy who have joined banks, and they are now become banker. But their customer management skills, the soft skills that those are required to be in a service industry and to be interacting with the customers, there's a lot that needs to be done with them regarding that. Then in the next level, the need are in terms of advanced banking skills. They need to be trained in specialized areas, and I'll come to those specialized areas, the functional skills, executive skills. And this is also the stage where a little more strategic orientation has to be given to the employees. Because in the earlier stage, it's more on operational issues, banking operations. But now here, a strategic orientation has to come. They have to be more inculcated in terms of decision-making skills. Again, customer management and soft skills remain. And in fact, as a banker moves up in the hierarchy, he should develop more and more of soft skills, people skills. Technical skills will obviously come to him automatically. But then what they lack is the people skill, the soft skill, and the kind of a strategic orientation that is required in a competitive environment. So that's in the middle management level. Again, these middle management people are very soon going to assume top management positions. And that's where there's going to be a lot of leadership skill requirement. Again, people skill, as I've told. Because we believe that as you move up in the hierarchy, the people skill, the leadership skills become more important. Technical skills are already there because of your experience and exposure. Then strategic orientation. People must get familiarized to international best practices and their role for monitoring and controlling. Basically, whatever they are handling becomes very important. So these are the 3 broad areas of the skill requirement addressed to 3 clear-cut levels in the banking organization. Now, to address these issues, I can briefly explain to you how an IBM is doing it. One of the major NIBM vertical is the education, which is a PGDM course, Banking and Finance. It's a 2-year full-time course. Now, this course was started in 2003. This is not what basically an IBM was created for. Basically, an IBM was created for the executives training. But in 2003, we did it in anticipation of the manpower crisis which the banks are going to face. So basically, even before entering the bank, the students were taken from the fresh market and they were being made bank ready, right? At least when they entered the bank, they understood basic banking. They understood what are the specializations that are required in banking today. Because you'll see later in my slide that there, in addition to a lot of general banking skills, there are highly specialized areas in banking that's now evolving. So these students get familiarized to that, and when they enter the bank, at least they can speak the jargon and the language which the bankers speak. And rest of the things, obviously, learning never ends, and they keep learning in the job. So this is one vertical. The next vertical is executive training, and that's what it has been for an IBM since its inception. Now, these are the functional areas of training that we are undertaking. credit appraisal, credit monitoring, NPA and recovery management, risk management, treasury operations, forex, foreign exchange management, investment management, export-import credit, human resource management and leadership programs, rural banking programs, technology in banking. You have seen how banking has been transformed by technology and therefore the need for the training in this area. Business analytics and customer relationship management. Hardly any banks are doing this, but there is a great deal of insight that one can get if they get into the analytics through customer transactions. And then based on that, the entire customer relationship management strategy can be formulated. Marketing, very, very important, particularly in the public sector banks. I can tell you even today, some of the branch managers feel that there is no need for them to go out and solicit business. And that's when I say that, my dear friends, the good old days of walk-in business is over. Now we have come to a stage, or we are in the days where we better start walking out and talking to our customers. And it's still taking time for many of us to understand this, which is quite unfortunate. Strategic thinking has been lacking, let me tell you, because of the historical perspective of banking. If there is not much of competition, we really do not bother much, because we know that the business is going to come. And that's what comes in way of sharpening our strategic thinking skills. Today, we have to work hard on imbibing the strategic way of looking at banking business. Then obviously there has to be a large number of overall executive development programs. At every stage of promotion of a banker, he needs to be reoriented to the new role that he's now going to assume. And that's where executive development programs are going to be a continuous kind of a process for the banks. And another major area is leadership development for the top management. And that's where what we have done in an IBM, we have collaborated with some international organizations, business schools. And the top management of banks are being taken to these business schools to get an international perspective. So one is, we have collaborated with Kellogg School of Management, Northwestern University in USA. We have collaborated with Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, now the European practices. Then School of Education, Executive Education, Manila, Philippines. Then we also have started doing customized programs for star performance. These are programs to incentivize the good performers in the banks. And we have, for this, collaborated with BITS Pilani Dubai and IMT Dubai, where the bankers are taken to those destinations. But essentially, this is to incentivize them. I personally feel it's a very, very good way of incentivizing good performers when you cannot give them financial incentives. Okay, then we are also collaborating with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange at Chicago. And we did collaborate with Stanford Graduate School of Business, but right now this collaboration is not on due to certain reasons. So in short, therefore, what I have tried to cover in my presentation is that there are HR-related issues, major HR-related issues and challenges in the banks, typically in a public sector bank. A large number of young people are there, they are inexperienced, and they are going to be the future of these banks. So a great training needs there, right? Banks have their internal training colleges, but then they have certain limitations about effective training at that level. Then at every stage of promotion, there is a need for training. Banks have started developing very specialized verticals, and therefore specialized functional training programs needs to be given. And since people are going to move up very fast to the top decision-making levels in the banks, top management leadership-related programs are going to be the necessity in the next 5 to 10 years. That's where the training needs really will be addressing. So I think this is what I would like to present. And in addition, of course, there's one more activity of an IBM. We, in collaboration with Government of India, do some international programs, but these programs are basically done as an initiative of the External Affairs Ministry of Government of India to promote cooperation with other countries. So we are a technical partner with the Government of India on this. So we do program for almost, the participation from 60 different countries is there for these highly technical banking programs. These are in Basel Accord and risk management, asset liability management, and also corporate governance and leadership. So with this, I would like to close my presentation, and I'm open to any questions or discussions on this matter, perhaps after the other speakers have spoken. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So the age group is below 25 years. Future lies in the mobile banking or technology banking, but inexperienced workforce is existing. Experience and exposure matters a lot. That is what he said. We have the next speaker from MIT Skills. So again, MIT Skills, they are carrying a legacy of 32 years. They are into the skill development programs in piping, process engineering, CAD/CAM, construction, oil and gas, and automotive. Let me tell you, the auto component sector employs approximately 19 million people, direct and indirect. The requirement is expected to reach 25 million by 2016 and 35 million by 2020. India's automotive sector is one of the largest manufacturing sector in India, accounting for 22% of India's manufacturing GDP. I request Sachin to speak his mind on the skill development in this sector. Sachin, from last 15 years, he has trained around 3,000 students, 1,200 employees, and under his leadership, MIT Skills not only training Indian workforce, but international workforce also. Sachin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Milan. Thanks for the brief introduction, and a warm greetings to everyone. Fine, I'll just okay. So I stand here more to share my experiences rather than sharing statistics or sharing experiences, and just moving on to share views about what should be done. But rather, I personally believe in sharing experiences about mine. As I've been delivering training, running an institute with almost 1,000 student intake for the past 15 years. And I'd prefer to share my experiences, and hopefully if they motivate anyone into the audiences, if it really inspires anyone from the industrial sector to support us in the cause what we are working for, that really will be the success. So my focus definitely is to share my experiences as the subject reads, the panel discussion reads, role of educational institutes into skill development. So honestly speaking, this is where skill development should start. The education sector, if you consider it right from the schooling education, the primary, secondary, higher education, all these sectors, if honestly speaking skilling happens over there, there won't be an independent need as such for having different skilling institutes or having skill enhancements program out there. But fine, with such a huge demographic dividend country, doing that overnight definitely is impossible. So skilling is a need of the hour, and we all of us in this particular room are striving to work in that particular direction and ultimately, I assume, serve the nation. So my presentation is more graphics. As a post-lunch session, I have tried to make it interesting, I would say it that way. I have intentionally avoided statistics or data from any other reports. If I had to come with it, I definitely would have been able to do a multi-slide presentation, but that was not the intention. But as I mentioned initially, to share the experiences and have things proactively happening hereafter. So for those who might not know about my organization, I just have a couple of slides to mention about it. We fall under a not-for-profit entity, Maharashtra Academy of Engineering and Educational Research, one of the pioneer engineering colleges, what we started with in 1983 in this part of the country. So with time, of course, with 32 years of functioning, successful functioning, we have grown to a considerable number of almost 60,000 students and 54 different schools and colleges across the state. Something that is not mentioned into my presentation, but I really would like to share over here is, recently we have been awarded as a private university status for the state of Maharashtra, and we are also functioning into some other states of this country, and functioning to become a university, I mean to say, in certain other states of this country as well. So as a gambit of educational development, as you can see into the presentation, the slides, we happen to function under all the sectors of education, I should say. So generic sectors have been mentioned, but the 54 different schools and colleges definitely includes almost every domain of education that happens under the framework in the Indian education system. Just a few names of certain educational institutes what run under MIT group of institutions. So I happen to mention about the number, and these are certain names for it. I'll prefer to mainly focus upon the activity what I represent, that is MIT Skills. Now this is something interesting. MIT Skills, though we started calling this entity as one name, that is MIT Skills, since early this particular decade, in the early 2011-12. But initiation was taken way back in 1994, and Center for Piping Process Engineering was initiated at that point of time. So we really have that to be our grassroots connections. So today, Piping Center happens to be our a major center into the MIT Skills domain, and in addition to that, we have added multiple new centers, multiple new verticals for skill development under the MIT Skills flagship with us. So if just to come up with the statistics or numbers, we train 1,000+ students every year. Okay, we happen to function into niche domains of skill development in both aspects, technologically as well as with educational qualification wise also. In the terms, the eligibility criteria with us, surprisingly for people who really plan to work to the bottom of the pyramid, but skilling really needs to be done at a post-engineering level also. And that is something depicted with what we have been doing for the past 20 years. So we happen to sit at the top of the pyramid as far as functioning is concerned in terms of technological skilling, as well as with the eligibility criteria of the participants who happen to enroll with us. Now when we say that, that has to be state of the art, because an engineer today is expected to have multiple or interdisciplinary skill sets to find a good employability, find employability into good multinational or even Indian companies to that particular extent. Now when we say that, this definitely cannot happen without having hands-on experience for the learner within the course duration he enrolls with us. To make the story or make it successful story, we prefer to have association with industry stalwarts, and each and every activity that happens at MIT Skills is purely as per the industry requirements, as the industry needs happen to be. None of the courses that we deliver, none of the contents of the course that we deliver comes in just because someone tells me, or maybe I like, someone of my team members like, and we happen to induct it. That definitely is not the case with this. It's a strong demand from the industry. We try to interact with multiple similarly functioning organizations to have their feedbacks, and only then we principally decide to go ahead with a particular activity. Now the industrial association definitely does not end over here itself. We get back to the individuals who suggest us in framing the coursework. What should be taught to the students has to come from the industry once again, apart from the domain of education. So once that is finalized, the next step definitely has to be the delivery part, and which is the most crucial part. Referring a curriculum, maybe with the digital era, it's really very possible, very easily possible, finding it from the internet and just sharing it for the sake of it, or even to that extent, training on a particular domain for the sake of it in terms of theoretical content. We absolutely brush aside this particular concept, and we try to focus upon the delivery to be the key area of success. We rely upon industrial veterans to deliver the training for our students, and that honestly is the root cause of success for us. So the training that happens to our participants, our learners, is really state of the art. People training them happen to spend their day in, day out into the industry, almost doing the same task. So the learner gets what exactly the industry needs, and that really makes him very, very highly employable. The statistics speaks in my slide. Last academic year that ended in the month of June 2015, we had 95 plus campus drives, and trust me, these were who's who of the industry. In terms, if I just to name a few, it included organizations like Reliance, the Tata Group, Samsung, and many more, many tier 1 or ancillary suppliers and multinational as well as Indian companies have been coming down to us back to back. In my association of 15 years, we haven't lost any recruiter as such. That really speaks to the success. That really speaks to the success the industry has with us. Now, this industrial success, this industrial association does not retain or does not remain only in terms of the campus interviews, the placements that we do. With time, fortunately enough, we happen to attain a good technical competency, and that's definitely not only my word, but the industry relies on us in upgrading their existing manpower also. So on many occasions, corporates functioning in and around Pune, or now with the past couple of years across India or outside India also, have been relying upon us in training their existing manpower with technical knowledge. So we are delivering purely customized technical training programs to a cross-section of the industry. When I say cross-section, it includes a newly joined trainee, a GET or something into the industry, or maybe a professional who has served a particular company for 14 to 15 years also. So that really speaks for it. We have been delivering training to American companies. Okay, this all happened in India. I should say that European companies or Far East Asian headquarter-based companies. And at the same time, we have been traveling within the African continent to upgrade certain manpower over there as well. So this really is the gist, or this really is an achievement in its own. Definitely, I know as far as numbers is concerned, the spectrum into which we work is comparatively small as expected by the governing bodies, or as expected by the skill development enhancement bodies, which are expecting huge numbers to happen within India. So as a small contribution, I should say we have been trained almost 7,500 plus engineers up till now, and more than that is 1,200 plus employees of various companies, and that too at an employer's cost. The company has been sending their employees to undergo training with us. That really has motivated us, that really has inspired us to work hard, work more. And in the initial stages, as I happen to say, we happen to work at the top of the pyramid, but definitely sensing the need of the hour, sensing the need of the nation, I should say that, we definitely do not mind getting down to the pyramid into niche areas, engineering areas, or even non-engineering areas to come up and deliver the employment generation or specific training which will assure a job to any of the learner who enrolls with us. So that was a brief about the activity that I do, the activity that I try to, or the activity that I had, and we try to improve day by day. So we have our own sets of problem. I really cannot stop myself from using this dais in sharing a few, I should say a bit of constraints as far as support is concerned. So the initial part of this slide I happen to mention, we do activities hands-in with the industry. So the response from the industry is one of the key concerns for us in terms of supporting, even with the technical know-how. We definitely respect the confidentiality matters and other things, but in principle, sharing know-how or allowing the resources to come down to our place, even to conduct a session. Now, many of these companies whom we approach happen to be multinational companies, and whereas in their parent country, it is treated a matter of honor, employee of a XYZ company going to a ABC university and conducting sessions, but the same company, the same organization functioning in India does not permit that. So maybe, definitely there might be certain constraints in their opinion, but fine, that is not the case in each and every scenario, each and every organization, but majority cases, yes, we face that particular problem. And fine, with time, we are trying to overcome that. With time, we have developed confidence with the industries, and we really hope to come up that particular scenario in the days to come. As far as the domains of education or training is concerned for us, I've just listed the names of the centers under which we deliver skill enhancement training. And these really happen to be into all the cross sections of the industry, so which includes right from oil and gas, which includes from what we list as CAD-CAM, because that is a more convenient or conversant word with the student community, the learner community. But this sector definitely addresses not only the automotive sector, but it addresses the heavy engineering, the FMCG, it also addresses the consumer electronics and all other design-related engineering domains as well. We also happen to work into the automotive sector, the construction technology center, along with the other centers of energy and sustainability. We are also trying to work into business analytics with a few companies. We have tried to have a tie-up, and that's the need of the hour. Internet of Things and other things have been spoken since a long time, but fine, we are attempting to have manpower ready in all these areas also, and of course, we are working into the telecom technology domain as well. So the list is also mentioned over here, and yes, as I said, the association with the industry has been inspiring us the most, and all our courses have been appreciated by the industry in terms of what we call as the recruitment happening back to back for the past 1.5 decades. So we have certain partnership with some of the companies for what we would call as technology sharing. We really try to have certain technologies with world-leading companies. The names are listed in front of you, which includes Dassault, Aviva, it could be 3D PLM, PTC, and Autodesk as well. So these are the people who we rely upon technically and try to work in some of the other model to maybe have joint certification or impart training as per what these companies have been saying, the universal standard, the universal industry requirement, and trying to match with that as well. Yes, so certain activities that we do, I've tried to make it graphically attractive with more and more photographs, as I said, more than tables and charts and other things. The reason I said is, fortunately enough, I've been invited into, as a panelist or a speaker or some of the other occasion, into multiple parts, maybe from South America to Africa, Europe and other things. And it's more like what should be done. So I attempted a different case over here with sharing what I've been doing. So certain glimpse, we try to have it not only classroom training, we definitely teach the students in terms of the know-how, what the industry needs from the industrial stalwarts. But seeing is believing, that is something, a fact, or that is the easier way to rely upon. So there have been a few kind industries, as I've been saying, who really have been helping us, and I've tried to add certain images with them. So industrial visits happen to be right from Deepak Fertilizers, Reliance, Volkswagen. And not only that, we try to go with the cooperative sector as well into some sugar manufacturing units, I mean sugarcane process units, which has its own reasons. And yes, that has served the students, that has helped the students in maybe seeing practically what theoretically they learn or try to do hands-on with their association with us. So that's some of the glimpse. Now, of course, these pictures have been not with context with the PowerPoint, but maybe graphically, which we could share over here. But there have been many good attempts by certain companies or certain sugar factories also, I should mention that, in helping us upgrading our students or on having a sound technical know-how for us. Yes, so placements, as I said, is a core activity of ours, and many placement drives keep on happening. So just a glimpse of image when a automotive tier 1 conducted interviews. This is a recent picture. We did it hardly a couple of weeks back, and fine, there were almost 100+ students who appeared, and many of them got through as well with this particular selection process for us. Yes, offer letter distribution, so many students get placed with us, and yes, certain photographs of students who have been selected with a few of the companies, so which include right from Reliance for Asia, Jacobs, and few more companies, I assume. And yes, these are the success stories, I should say. And recently, or very precisely, hardly a couple of months back, we attempted a new concept that was on occasion of the World Skills Youth Day, which happened to be on 15th July. And okay, I'll get back to that point. And a slide once again for the top recruiters whom we have been associated with. Yes, the point what I initially tried to mention with was the World Skills Youth Day, and we celebrated it. It was the first World Skills Youth Day denominated by the United Nations, and the first Youth Skills Day competition or celebrations happened at MIT Skills with a unique competition which we named as iMake. So believing onto hands-on skill or believing into a philosophy where the learner has to do things to really understand or learn things the right way. We named that competition in a unique manner, and that really helped us. And there were very interesting methodologies where the students were expected to work, including the latest technologies, like rapid prototyping. They had to show their hands-on skills with maybe layout with drawing sheets, integrating it with the latest technologies for simulation, analysis, or design as well. And it was appreciated by industrial veterans. The fact for this particular competition was the problem statement that was given to each and every student was designed by the industry expert. A domain in that particular industrial sector had designed the problem statement. And once again, that really motivated the student to work hard or to really rise his level as per the expectations what he or she would be expected to deliver if he gets an opportunity to serve the industry. So we initially have a very good response. I definitely cannot resist sharing names of the industries who have been kind enough in supporting us. Namely, there was ThyssenKrupp, it was Forbes Marshall, and also ARAI, who came forward answering our call and really supported us in making this initiative a success. It was an attempt, what I said initially, a competition, in-house competition for our own students, which sparked them to apply or which motivated them to apply whatever they learn with us. So maybe assessment could be one, okay, it's my observation once again, assessment, conducting examinations could be one mean of checking out what a learner has understood and maybe evaluate him in the days to come. But what we found is conducting a competition really is a healthier way, and it involves everyone without adding any sort of a burden, which most of the time examinations do. Okay, so I should say here we have assessment methods, but the findings what we had, the learnings what we had with the IMEC competition was a bit unique in this particular scenario. So this was the medallions. There were almost 200 plus students who participated into the competition and the prize winners over here. And at the same time, this particular initiative was supported by the media as well. So leading newspapers, I could not add all the images without, we did not have the soft copy. So the media also covered it in a moderate way, and the students were more motivated. And the next batches, the students have been keen about asking us about the next initiative, the next IMEC competition for us to be conducted in the days to come. So I really would like to sum up with my presentation over here. And as I initially happened to mention, my attempt in person was here to share what our educational institute is doing. And instead of just coming up with facts or numbers and other findings, if anyone from the audiences or anyone known to you could help us in supporting the cause, maybe educational institute who would really like to do similar activities for them, or even any industry who voluntarily would like to support us, we expect support in terms of a knowledge partnership, in terms of association for a company for student visit, or know-how, or very similar manner, or a generous manner, I should say that. So I sincerely thank you for your patience here, and once again.
Thanks, Sachin. It's almost learning by doing and engagement of the students as to achieve the skill sets. We have a next speaker. They are running a skill programs in capital market, financial market, retail, construction, supply chain, logistics, big data. Let me give you some statistics. FMCG sector has grown at annual average of about 11%. Rural FMCG market anticipated to increase at CAGR of 70.7% to reach $100 billion up to 2020. And manufacturing, mining, and infrastructure sector is expected to create 100 million jobs in next 10 years. Today we have with us Dr. Shailesh Kasande, the Director, Corporate Relations at Vishwakarma Institutes, also the Professor and Head, Research Wing of Vishwakarma Institutes. I request Dr. Shailesh to focus on his skill initiatives.
Good afternoon. I represent Vishwakarma Institutes, most popularly known by the flagship brand VIT. I will try and look at what are the various things that we do under skilling across all these institutes. VIT, VIIT, VIM, Marine Institute, VMI, PGDM Institute, VGBS, Arts, Science, Commerce College, the traditional one, and the schools. I'll leave the schools aside. All these institutes are at a different stage in their evolution, and therefore they function under different regulatory frameworks. This session, when we conceptualized at the executive committee meeting, was looked at as an experience sharing kind of a session. So what I'll try and do is share with you the thought process behind what we do and what are the outcomes, the challenges, and the successes that we have met with. In terms of the NSQF framework, we operate at number 7, 8, 9. I will leave the 10 aside because it's highly regulated by the university and the UGC. There is little that we can do over there. All the institutes that I spoke of, they function in the degree and the postgraduate level kind of a thing. When you look at the NSQF website and the document, it mentions that the industry has not endorsed skill development associated with these generic qualifications at the degree and the postgraduate level. It also states that the workplace does not see much value in them as a result of high level of unemployment persists among youth with generic qualifications. We all are aware of this. And therefore, a reorientation of qualifications has to be done in the higher education space. Let's slightly zoom out and find out what's happening in the economy. Jobless growth has been a matter of debate right at G20 to Skillcons like this. There is a very feeble correlation between GDP growth and job availability in terms of the number of jobs that are created. Likewise, there is a weak correlation between jobs created per billion of dollars or rupees invested. So the job creation itself is an issue. And then economists have coined a very good word, persistent jobless growth, to mention this phenomenon, where they say that the economy might come out of a recession, yet it might end up having lesser number of jobs. So on the supply side for jobs, the quantum, although there are huge numbers which are thrown up in every sector, but the total requirement has shrunk. Okay, so some statistics to share this just support the point, wherein we say that in the last decade of 2000 to 2011, the jobs requirement grew at a certain percentage, but the actual employment was lesser than that particular thing. Furthermore, the requirement of jobs is skewed towards certain sectors. The government is doing some attempts in terms of various initiatives, Make in India, Digital India, Skill India, etc., to try and reverse the situation. At the same time, the institutes, the regulators like AICTE, UGC and several others, as well as the industry, is talking of unemployability or the skills gap as such. Different figures are quoted. Some of the most pessimistic figures are 18% employability of the engineers and 10% for MBAs. Other figures, the most rosy, are about 25 to 30%, and that also leaves a lot to be desired. Fundamentally, when we looked at talking to the industry, we also realized that the workplace of the future and the nature of work itself is changing. So workplace is getting transformed, the workers are getting transformed, and the nature of work is also evolving in a very discontinuous manner. So the human resource of the future also would be radically different. And as an educational group, we need to look at this particular phenomenon very closely. So internally, what we believe is the entire higher education space within which we operate and many others needs to fundamentally reinvent itself in line with the changing workplace requirements as well as the changing expectations and requirements of the learners. Dr. Milin spoke of six devices per head, so digitization and various other aspects. What we also believe, in line with what was mentioned yesterday in the first panel discussion by Dr. Dhande, was that we can't really look at knowledge and skills as two different things. What we believe is the jobs, roles, careers, whatever we talk of, across the levels will have components of knowledge, skills, as well as the behavioral aspect. They are all on a continuum. So at the lower level of ITIs, maybe skill would be very high component, but as we move up, maybe all the other components also come into play. Internally, we also believe that given the stage where society is, the acceptance of skill-only vocational programs is somewhat a question mark. So we thought that let's not get into that particular space exclusively. Also, this two-track system places a burden on the learner to get a particular degree for knowledge per se and get another certification for skills per se. And then there are issues of the fees and how much affordability and so on as well. So as a group, we do believe that skilling, that is training for jobs or employability, and education, which is broadly the training for minds and thought processes, are not mutually exclusive things. We shouldn't focus on one at the expense of others. And all the stakeholders, primarily the student and the industry, need both the components. So the problem statement for us internally was, how do we enrich our existing educational programs with adequate skill components? How do we get industry endorsement of what we do to incorporate, embed these skill components in what we are doing? How do we make the learner see value in these skill components? And how do we integrate the entire KSA framework in the learning cycle? And this has to be done keeping in mind that there would be regulatory frameworks like AICTE, the UGC, the university, the Shikshan Shulka, and various other things which would place certain constraints on us. So internally, we embarked on a mission of curriculum revamp, which includes not only the syllabus but the entire ecosystem of the learner. And typically, as I said, since several institutes are at different stages in their life cycle, like with VIT, the flagship institute, which is now autonomous, VIIT and VIM now are on that path of being autonomous. So with VIT, we had this flexibility of revamping the entire thing, having granted academic autonomy. So the teaching learning processes, the evaluation systems, the credits for live projects, and working closely with the industry to map their changing manpower requirements and incorporating them back into the syllabi, and most importantly, train the faculty. So this is what we tried to do in the academic domain. The industry part of it, in terms of facing to the customer, we said that let's look beyond placements and summer projects. And with this particular perspective, as far as VIT is concerned, we entered into several MOUs focused on 3 different sets of activities, one for students, second for research, and third for the faculty exchange. And the list over there explains that we have tried to get into MOUs across continents, right from US, Europe, Asia, and so on. These are focused MOUs on several requirements which are current as well as futuristic. With VIIT, which is not autonomous, we focused on and collaboration with TIFR specifically for research, where students and faculty as well as scientists from TIFR are engaged. And this is a consistent thing that has been built up over the last 5 to 6 years. I'll try and deep dive somewhat into the management domain that we do, and also share something about the Maritime Institute, which is a unique attempt on our part to have an industry partnership for skilling. The focus over here is on student as a product for the industry, the faculty as the lever to execute the vision or the thought process behind what we are doing, the industry as the end customer, and to some extent even the parent as an influencer. Because finally the parents also need to be educated in terms of putting the money in terms of various additional certifications and so on. As I said earlier, the demand for manpower is skewed, and we also thought that we can't really have our fingers in all the pies. So the internal thought process was to focus on futuristic sectors where the demand for skilled manpower would be high. And we shortlisted a few like manufacturing, BFSI, retail, e-commerce, supply chain, analytics, and so on. We entered into some MOUs with the best in each of these. Typically, we are working with NSE for a certified executive program in financial markets and a certified capital market professional. Figures have already been shared about the kind of jobs that are going to be available in banking and financial services and insurance. We're also working with ICICI Direct, again in the domain of financial services. Nationally, we were the first institute to tie up with IBM for digital big data analytics, primarily predictive and descriptive analytics. We are also working with PMI, Project Management Institute, and ISTD for various programs in their domains. We are working with CII for supply chain management, again looking at the growth of e-commerce and the last mile connectivity being an issue. And we were earlier working with legacies for a lawyer management kind of a program. So these are some of the programs which we are working in the management domain along with various industry partners. Another institute that functions within the management domain, but which is outside the university fold, is our Vishwakarma Business School. Over there, we have more flexibility since we don't operate within the university domain. Over here, a conscious effort has been made to integrate industry perspectives into the curriculum, and therefore specialized curriculums have been developed for retail management, telecom management, construction management, and event management. All of these have led to enhanced employability amongst the passing out graduates. We often keep on discussing, and yesterday a point was made about PhDs and non-PhDs or industry professionals being accommodated. An internal thought process was, let's not fight with the given regulatory framework, because there is little that we can do to convince AICT about the PhD, non-PhD, the industry professionals as professors and so on. So this point of professor of knowledge to professor of practice was made yesterday. We gave it a thought process. The thought was, we can obviously have adjunct faculty from the industry to further strengthen our faculty pool. But what can be done and what needs to be done to a large segment of faculty which are in-house full-time faculty members, to convert them from professor of knowledge to professor of practice. That is equally important. So we came up with a concept of faculty sabbaticals, where faculty members work on live projects with the industry against measurable key result areas, which are jointly evaluated by the industry and the institute. The policy framework says that we would provide as a group, as an institute, fully paid and on-duty availability of the faculty for the industry over extended periods from 2 months to 6 months. The faculty are then expected to share the learning with the peers, that is the fellow faculty members. Some of our faculty members have done such sabbaticals with Tata Motors, Mahindra's and Girikan Travels, an attempt to convert the professor of knowledge to professor of practice. We also have some commitments for skilling in the social domain. So we work with CII to train the faculty members of ITI at ITI Morwadi. We also do some work with QMTI for the past 5 years for training of disabled soldiers. And we are also working on training primary school teachers. NSQF also mentions that skill upgradation is a component of skilling. So reskilling industry professionals is another vertical which we focus on very closely and which tries to build synergies with our teaching learning program at all the Vishwakarma institutes. So reskilling industry professionals through in-house and open continuous learning programs, typically popularly known as MDPs. Some of our clients or partners are Roha Industrial Association, Ritters, Tyco, Sandoz, Bridgestone, Wärtsilä, TE Connectivity, Tata Steel, Rohan Builders and so on. So we straddle this entire space of the focus areas that we have identified for ourselves. A particular case interesting to share is our Maritime Institute, where the partnership is not only of one-off kind of a thing, but we have tied up with BSM, one of the leading mariners, to develop marine engineers for the industry. They have been involved in all the aspects of the entire educational life cycle. So the admission process itself starts with a joint panel of the industry and academia. There is a regular review of what happens in terms of industry connect as well as the academic input to them by quarterly meetings. Then there is an assurance that all those who succeed or get the right grades are employed by BSM. Furthermore, those who are employed, we track their performance on the job, and there is a feedback loop to take the corrective action in the next academic cycle. So this possibly is one of the best examples of skilling of the students for better employability. Overall, the positives for us in whatever we have tried to do to skill our graduates and postgraduate students is that we have been successful in entering into a lot of MOUs for joint curriculum development, training, evaluation and certification of students. Trainers from the industry, a point was made that in India, possibly industry is not forthcoming. However, we have come across industries which have assigned certain credits for their employees participating in training of students. So that is a welcome development on the part of the industry. However, it requires a rigorous follow-up with the industry to ensure that things materialize. Policy environment within the institute not only promotes, encourages, but insists among the faculty that they should have industry connect. And only then the professor of knowledge would be a professor of practice. We have academic advisory boards which try and ensure that the industry input is continuously monitored and incorporated in whatever we do. Dr. Milind said that I should also share some challenges. One of the challenges that we face is student mobilization. Making students see value in these efforts is a challenge. So the numbers for all these programs that we do are not really scalable to that extent. Secondly, the pay differential that a skilled engineer or a skilled MBA gets as compared to a so-called unskilled is not really very significant, although the industry keeps on crying about this skill gap. Also making the internal stakeholder, the faculty, appreciate the relevance of industry connect for their own continued relevance is a big internal marketing challenge for every educational institute, I believe. To sum up, what we believe is if skilling has to be done at the 7, 8, 9 level in the NSQF framework, there has to be a long-term industry-academia partnership wherein commitment is required by both the partners. Patience is the key, nothing happens overnight. And we believe a transactional approach doesn't help, so relational approach on part of both the industry as well as academia should help. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shailesh. Very brief, very informative. What you said, education and employability will go hand in hand, and most important what I like is training of minds and training for jobs. We have a next speaker. Again, the institution is carrying a legacy of 50 years. They founded in 1966, and one of the former Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Principal Manohar Joshi, he initiated that institution called Kohinoor Institute of Technology. The website says, Hunar bhi, Rojgar bhi. That is what the tagline with the KIT. And today we have with us Mr. Samir Joshi, who is the CEO and Director at KIT. They are basically into the bottom of the pyramid. What happened? All the three speakers, they spoke about the middle of the pyramid and the top of the pyramid. But this speaker, he will be targeting the bottom of the pyramid. They are mostly working into the hospitality, real estate, healthcare, power, and they are achieving the skill, scale, and speed, all three. Mr. Samir, please.
Thank you, Dr. Milind. And thank you for all the previous speakers giving me on time for 15 minutes to wind up. Thank you. So, as Dr. Milind said rightly, I think the key difference that you will observe in my dialogue versus the dialogue what my honorable speakers had earlier is we focus towards the bottommost layer of the pyramid. So in NSQF language I have to speak, we focus on level 1 to level 5. And that's what is the difference we have as far as this quick dialogue goes beyond. One of the things which I want to just set the ground here is that the ethos of our Kohinoor Technical Institute is built on this tagline. What you see is the skill, employment, and livelihood. A lot of talks have been taken on unskilled and unemployment, and there is a huge skill gap which we foresee, and there where the whole nation is sort of getting driven by this skilling mission. When we started modeling this as how do we take really the forward step when it comes to skilling mission, we actually analyze the situation on two basic parameters. Whenever there is a candidate who comes out as a candidate in the job market, there is a difference between eligibility and suitability. The candidate is getting formal education, and that makes him eligible with his certificates to become eligible for the employment. But the key question comes up. Despite being eligible, is he suitable to do that job? And that suitability is nothing but what we say as the skill that a candidature need to have to do the job. To start with, I think this is what is the spread which I will have as far as this dialogue goes. I will have very quick brief on what KTI does, Kohinoor Technical Institute does in the market today in the skilling.
11th August this year to 16th August, there was International Skill Olympics, International Skill Competition being organized in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I was there as a CI delegate there as to get connected how the international institutes do work in this skill environment, in the skill space. So it will be interesting to see what is the Brazilian model when it comes to skill enhancement in Sao Paulo. Quickly sharing the India scenario and then actually touching the point, what is the final summary, what could be and what is going to be the role of institutes when it comes to skilling in India. Starting with KTI brief. So this is a quick book of KTI what we have. As Dr. Milind pointed out rightly, it's actually 5 decades plus that we are into the skilling activity when it comes to skilling youth, in starting predominantly from state of Maharashtra, which we have expanded till date today 6 states across India, spanning over 75 centers. As we all would know that the key strength or the backbone when it comes to skilling is the trainers. And we have today in around 600 people organization, 450 is our training force. Till date, we have trained around 500,000 plus people, with 300,000 plus our students being employed in various industries, not necessarily the big corporates, but prima facie on MSME sector, the micro, small and medium enterprises. 15% of the students, as a key uniqueness what we deliver from KTI, are proudly carrying their tag as they are the entrepreneurs today in the market. This is the award which we received just 2 months ago in July as the National Institute as doing the best work when it comes to skilling the youth in India. Proudly, yes, we are NSDC partners and we have affiliation as on date today with 7 key sector skill councils covering telecom, retail. I think James was here in the morning today. James was here, right? Automobile, plumbing, apparel, capital goods, and construction skill council. There are another 6 sectors that will be affiliated with SSCs by end of October. These are the industry verticals where our programs are aligned to. We cater to services as the measure. That's why it's at the center of the chart here. Automobile, healthcare, real estate, textiles, IT, and telecom. In these industry sectors, we run around 74 certificates and diploma courses. One of the key uniqueness that we deliver from KTI is we really target creating employers than employees, job givers than job seekers. How? So this is some notable work done by our students, and this is just as a sample size. As I speak right now, there is a technical exhibition being done at our Jogeshwari outlet in Mumbai, where there is this kind of work outputs are being displayed by our students. So if you see, this is a highway street LED lighting project exhibited by our student, the seawater electricity generators created by our students, frost-free refrigerator which costs only 4,500 rupees in the market as a refrigerator which is done by our student, so on and so forth. So this is just a glimpse what KTI does as education or a skilling to the students in real output, the way the students are products out in the market. What is Brazilian skill enhancement model? This is more for our, just as a good reference line. I'm not the expert to speak on what happens in Brazil, but it's nice to share the note what I observed when I was there in this international skill forum which was conducted at Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo, quick one, it's like a 42 million state of Brazil, and having the key point is 645 municipalities which are there as a part of Brazilian federal. The key model what Brazil works is the Senai school. Senai is acronym for some Portuguese name, but in English terms it's the National Service for Industrial Apprenticeship. That is the backbone when we say how skilling is done in Brazil, Sao Paulo being the hub where it is being done with Senai as a predominant base. What is Senai school? How is the school being formed? It's a private, not-for-profit organization. And the key point, what you see in this point number 2, financed and managed by the industrial sector enterprise. Fully supported by industry. It's an industry-driven school. It's an agency that provides education solutions for the industry. So there is a demand from the industry, demand is given to Senai school, and the supply is given by the Senai school as output of the student. By law in the state of Brazil, 1% of industry revenue is given to Senai school as a funding to make the school, to run the school, to get the facilities in place. That's the key difference which I saw as a Brazilian model when it comes to vocational training institute, the way it operates in Brazil. I have my friend here from Volkswagen who was there as a part of our CI delegates, and he understands the way the Brazilian model works, which is very new if it comes to and to be replicated in India. Mission: to promote professional and technological education, nutshell, contributing to increase the competitiveness of Brazilian industry. Business is vocational education, supporting industrial technologies. Imagery, the picture of a typical Senai school. This is a vocational technical training provider. This school, I was here at metallurgical school, trains 1,000 students a day in one premises. Each student get this kind of machine to work on. That's the equipment and the facility. All the labs are with robotics, mechatronics, whatever you say as the latest industry technology application, it is there as a part of their vocational training service provider. This is very interesting. Senai Mobile School. It's like a school which is on wheels. I think Dr. Milind said, you don't come to us, I come to you. That's the model. The teaching that happens on the truck chassis. This is the inside classroom. 20 to 25 seater classroom with all facilities, including projector, slideshow, etc. And of course, you see the equipment which is there. So in this mobile school, I saw even the cut engine of a big, huge tractor. That's how is the size of this mobile technical schools when it comes to Senai. This is a typical this mobile school as a Senai school. So in Sao Paulo, if you see, there are total 164 Senai schools which are operational, of which 74 are mobile and 91 are normal training school under brick and mortar as a design. Typical models that they shared, how Germany, Russia, Brazil, China is operating when it comes to skill as a skill modeling. So Germany, which is typical on dual system, where by age of 14 and 15, the track setting happens between the formal education and the vocational education. Likewise in Russia, Brazil, which is predominantly on Senai, and China. Why I'm saying typically these schools are because, as I think one of the speakers earlier was saying, other than India, which is at 2 to 3% of the total workforce as a skilled workforce, these countries are floating anywhere between minimum 50%, ending up to South Korea, which is floating at around 96% as a skilling percentage. Global challenges and opportunities which we as a team agreed together. Yes, the successful model has got a complete integration of entire ecosystem. Entire ecosystem I meant by its government machinery, industry, training providers. Everybody is on the one common platform with the objective of creating skilled youth for the country. They do have as a challenge that vocational education needs to be more aspirational. New age skilling is a must as to get aligned with the industry requirements. Right teachers, as I was mentioning, the backbone of any institute to have a right delivery mechanism as to create a right output as per the industry requirement. Mobility of the students, I think that is the point again one of the speakers was saying, and that we face tremendous as an issue as a mobility. Students are real resistant to travel on two fronts. One is the money, because that strata when I'm talking about level 1 to level 5 category of certification, it is typically a BPL, below the line or below poverty line as the student strata, so very price sensitive. And second is a time constraint, because these students are typically busy doing other activities in the rest of the time when they are not being trained under vocational skills. Need to focus on building entrepreneurship. I think that is a key focus. Even globally, it is being spoken about, even in those developed countries where the skilling is more above 50%. What is India's scenario? Again, we heard something like it's like a demographic dividend. This is exactly the figure which gets bulged out, if you see the slice clearly, between the age bracket of 15 to 59, which is a typically working age as a population, right? Our retirement is as typically at 60. So if you see this diagram, this is where the highest bulge is happening in this population pyramid by 2026. And what it says globally, India will be declared as the youngest nation by 2020, with the average age of Indian as a 29, which exactly falls in this age bracket as a working age population. And this population will be 28% of the working population of the globe. And that exactly is what is demographic dividend that India is going to enjoy. So this is upside. What is the downside? This is a gap that everybody is speaking today. Absolute number. This is a source is skill gap report published by NSDC. Incremental human resource requirement across 24 key industry sectors is going to be 119 million, roughly around 11 crores. Top 10 sectors, and this is just the pictorial image, starting with construction to handloom at the bottom of this pictorial diagram. This is what is the spread across various key sectors where there is a dire need to create skilling with this kind of demand which is coming out. So how is the key focus? This is something which is being done today in India. And this is what is the modeling which is there, which exists when it comes to this level 1 to level 5. So there are various buckets that we spoke about. What is the key focus for bridging the skill? So there is this new framework, NSDC being formed up in 2009. Now it's operational 5 years. I think it's doing really good scores as to go forward direction, with SSCs working closely with the industries, helping us a lot to get the right QP NOS to drive the programs. 6 months old, which is Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, I think with Rudy ji leading it very aggressively, very engaged at the ground level, it is definitely driving as a good momentum to get into the skilling. The latest of the lot that they promote the schemes like PMKVY, Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, to target below poverty line people. I think it's all helps as a framework. The next bucket which comes is locating those candidates. Where are these people? Where are these 119 million people? So that becomes as a good responsibility on these training providers. And there where that the next bucket comes, which is training and developing. So once you locate those skill required people, you train them, give them the required skills, and then create their livelihood, which is more like an industry space there. So if I divide these 4 buckets into 3 main 3-legged tool as a skilling focus, there is this government sort of a bucket, which is a government and PPP put together, which is definitely working. Then there is this VTP space, which is a conduit, which is people like us, KTI. And then there is at the end of the tunnel, which is the light, which is industry, which is giving them job or employment, else the self-employment as entrepreneurship. So this is what is exactly is the modeling, which is there as a skilling. What could be the key role and what is the key requirement from the institutes? And this is, I leave it as a point of discussions even with the audience and the expert panels on the dais. Dual system. We have still time in India to have a standard education system which is on this dual mode. Formal education, me being a parent of 2 daughters, aspiration is always my daughters should get something AC office to work with, white collar job. Being in education, that is the typical mindset of Indian parents today. Charity begins at home. I'm like that. Right? So this change has to happen first. Can formal education, and this change has started happening, Delhi University. They're already asking to have participation from vocational training providers like us to give vocational education hand in hand with their CBSE schools. Germany model, right? So we can do some global benchmarking there. Right on technology platform, I think initially we talked about Make in India, Digital India, which Modi ji is really driving this as a key focus. Every village today is going to get wired with 256 kbps pipeline. Is it necessary to start with brick and mortar model all the time? How much time will it take to reach by brick and mortar model to reach out to those 119 million people across nook and corner of 593 constituencies in India? Can we ride on this 4G which is happening? I'm also an ex-telecom guy. Can we ride on 4G telecom? The data connectivity is possible, right? The video streaming is possible. But it should have a right judicial blend of something in class and something over line. So that's the approach that one could have. Can we create those virtual classrooms? Innovate the learning methodology, sole responsibility of the institutes. Is it going to have really just the classroom training? Today, vocational institutes face a problem of dropout ratios of the students. Why they drop out? Can we create some innovative learning methods? Can we create role models? Somebody spoke about industry internship. Can we get industry gate speakers even in the vocational institutes? That's the responsibility what I'm talking about when it comes to institutes' responsibility. Innovating, thinking out of the box when it comes to as educating this youth, which needs suitability in the industry. Creating industry-based labs. My friend from Volkswagen, right? Automobile sector. We teach automobile course. We are the expert as far as delivering the course, content, know-how. If we tie up with the industry and create the skill lab, autotronic lab within the industry premises, with the objective because the equipment is available there within the industry, right? There is a sensitivity when it comes to the capex involvement for the level 1 to level 4 level of institutes has to invest so much of money as sustainability becomes questionable. Can industry partnering be done? Two benefits. One, we attract the crowd of 119 million directly to the industry gateways. Number two, somebody spoke about reskilling. We skill our own employees in the industry to get to the next level within the lab which is in the premises of the industry. Fifth and the most important, which we work very closely, partnering with the industry, proudly, we have 1,500 plus MSMEs and 500 plus corporates tied up with KTI who give jobs to our students. Our placement ratio today is 60% plus for the students that we do as an intake. Hunar bhi rozgar bhi, that's a campaign. There is another tagline there. Kohinoorcha mulana nokri miltets. That's what we say as a reverse funneling. And there where we don't have that as a problem as to create the mobilization to get students for KTI. Because there is a job guarantee when the student comes to KTI because of large partnering that we have with our industries. Just last week, we signed a contract. It's a new age technologies and the new age programs we have. MNC from Hyderabad, they need 2,000 students to be mobilized in 1 month for BPOs and KPOs to handle their call center pressure. And that's what they've approached KTI. We signed the MOU and there where we go. This is, I think, the short note what I wanted to share. Thank you, and I'm open to have any questions, especially from level 1 to level 5 as a skilling in youth market today in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Samir. It's a very informative, very brief, and to the point. Because of the time constraint, I will just sum up and we'll take the questions offline. We started late, we started 2:30, and it's almost now. In that way, we are on to the time, but let me conclude. But before that, everybody we spoke about the challenges into the skill imparting from the educational institutions. So many challenges we spoke, mobilization of the students, mobilization of the trainers, scalability, speed, but what quality? We are speaking about the speed and scale. Mismatch of aspirations and opportunities, like in Punjab. For the construction work, the Punjab citizens, they don't want to do any construction work. Mostly the construction force comes from the Bihar, Jharkhand and the other part. Skill assessment and certifications, many more challenges, but always there are the disruptions and out-of-box solutions. I was discussing with one of my colleague, he said, if we can mobilize the retired teachers, if we can call all the retired teachers to educate the, say, primary or secondary school children, we can develop the content. We can transform that content into the 100 languages, and through the digital technology, we can reach to the each and every student. That is possible. Not only that, like faculty development program, can we have the trainer development program? only that institution will focus only to prepare the trainers, because there is a difference between the teacher and trainer. The trainer comes with the experience, teacher comes with the book knowledge. I know one gentleman, Mr. Ganesh from Bangalore, he came up with the concept called Tuition Vista. Recently, that Tuition Vista took over by the Pearson. A disruption in the technology. Samira shared the best practices from the Brazil. Dr. Shailesh also spoke, Sachin also spoke, and Dr. Kalyan Swarup also spoke about the best practices, what they are doing. Let me conclude as the role of educational institutions in the skill development. The basic and prima facie word is tell me and I will forget, teach me and I will remember, engage me and I will learn. So engagement and learning, so engagement and skilling, this is the bottom line of the skill pyramid. Thank you very much, and big round of applause for the all speakers. Thank you.
We are not taking the usual tea break right away. We'll continue with the next session. We are trying and getting the tea served inside, so kindly bear with us. Thank you, Dr. Milind Pandey, Dr. Shailesh Kasande, Mr. Samir Joshi, Mr. Sachin Satputy, and Dr. Kalyan Swarup.